Shall we begin? I think we're on page 179. Perhaps now we'll read from line 234. We're reading in Book 2, the Book of the Traveller of the Worlds, and Canto 6, the Kingdoms and Godheads of the Greater Life. This is quite a long canto with 7 sections. So we read the first one, we're still in the middle of the second one. So, Sri Aurobindo is giving us a description of this kingdom of the greater life. It says that the creative life force, I'm going back to the previous page, line 205. It says, a world she made, touched by truth's fleeing hem. A world cast into a dream of what it seeks. An icon of truth, a conscious mystery's shape. So that's the kind of world that we are reading about. It can only near and touch. It cannot hold. It can only strain towards some bright extreme. Its greatness is to seek and to create. That's the quality that makes it a greater life. The seeking and the power of creation. And the poet continues, on every plane this greatness must create. This greatness, the supreme creative power, the Divine Mother. On earth, in heaven, in hell, she is the same. Of every fate, she takes her mighty part. A guardian of the fire that lights the suns, she triumphs in her glory and her might. Opposed, oppressed, she bears God's urge to be born. The spirit survives upon non-being's ground. World force outlasts world disillusion's shock. Dumb, she is still the word. Inert, the power. Here, fallen, a slave of death and ignorance. To things deathless she is driven to aspire and moved to know even the unknowable. Even nescient, null, her sleep creates a world. When most unseen, most mightily she works. housed in the atom, buried in the clod, her quick creative passion cannot cease. Inconscience is her long, gigantic pause. Her cosmic swoon is a stupendous phase. Time-born, she hides her immortality. In death, her bed, she waits the hour to rise. Even with the light denied that sent her forth, and the hope dead she needed for her task, even when her brightest stars are quenched in night, nourished by hardship and calamity, and with pain for her body's handmaid, masseur's nurse, her tortured, invisible spirit continues still to toil, though in darkness, to create, though with pangs. She carries crucified God upon her breast. In chill, insentient depths where joy is none, immured, oppressed by the resisting void, where nothing moves and nothing can become, still she remembers, still invokes the skill the wonder worker gave her at her birth, imparts to drowsy formlessness a shape, reveals a world where nothing was before. In realms confined to a prone circle of death, to a dark eternity of ignorance, a quiver in an inert, inconscient mass, or imprisoned in immobilized whirls of force by matter's blind compulsion, deaf and mute, she refuses, motionless in the dust, to sleep. Then, for her rebel waking's punishment, given only hard mechanic circumstance as the enginery of her magic craft, she fashions godlike marvels out of mud. In the plasm, she sets her dumb, immortal urge, helps the live tissue to think, the closed sense to feel, flashes through the frail nerves, poignant messages. In a heart of flesh, miraculously loves. To brute bodies gives a soul, a will, a voice. Ever she summons, as by a sorcerer's wand, beings and shapes and scenes innumerable, torch-bearers of her pomps through time and space. This world is her long journey through the night. the suns and planets, lamps to light her road. Our reason is the confidant of her thoughts. Our senses are her vibrant witnesses. There, drawing her signs from things half true, half false, she labors to replace by realized dreams the memory of her lost eternity. If you like, we can turn for a moment to page 118. This first section of Canto 3 of Book 2 is the first description that Sri Aurobindo gives us of this wonderful goddess of life. From page 116, that first section of Canto 3, page 116 to 118, he gives a first description of life as we know it. And then at the end of the section, after describing the kind of mixed life that we know, he says, last 6 lines, yet, despite all that, all the imperfections of life as we know it, yet pure and bright from the timeless was her birth. A lost world rapture lingers in her eyes. Her moods are faces of the infinite. Beauty and happiness are her native right, and endless bliss is her eternal home. But that wonderful life goddess whose home is eternal bliss, she has accepted to descend into our material world, to bring life here. Otherwise it would just be a purely material universe with planets and stars and nothing living in it. Sea and sky and stone, he says. No? But because she has descended into the grip of matter, she has to suffer a great deal. All the powerful creative urges that are native to life are contradicted, restricted, denied. So here when he speaks about her remembering, she still remembers. And she's still doing wonders, creating impossible things. She remembers the skill, the clever hands, the creative power that she was given by the wonder worker, by the Lord himself, when she was born. And she uses that power she's been given to create things, to reveal a world where there wasn't anything before, to work even in matter. She does such marvelous things. She's not only created all these wonderful living beings that we see around us. She's made matter live. In the plasm, in the first matter, she has set her dumb, immortal urge for life and feeling and creation. So she helps our bodies, the live tissue of our bodies, to think. She helps the senses, the senses that are closed away on the inside of our bodies. She helps them to feel. She flashes through the frail nerves. It's the nerves that carry the messages from the sense impressions we receive from things outside our own bodies. Through the nerves, she sends poignant messages in this heart of flesh. It's just a material organ, but in the heart of flesh, she miraculously loves. These rough, crude animal bodies, she gives each of them a soul, a will, a voice. And she's always going on and on doing that. She's summoning, as if like an enchanter, calling up with his wand beings and shapes and scenes innumerable. And these are like her attendants, the torch bearers, as she's making her wonderful procession through time and space. They are lighting the way, showing where she's going. And this world of matter is her long journey through the night. The suns and planets are lamps to light her road. Our reason, the higher mind, is our confidant of her thoughts. She tells us her thoughts. She makes them available to our mind. Our senses are her vibrant witnesses. The fact that we can see and hear and taste and smell and touch, that's giving witness to her skill. There, drawing her signs from things half true, half false, she labors to replace by realized dreams the memory of her lost eternity, that eternal bliss which is her true home. Here in this world, she uses all her creative powers to produce realized dreams, realized in matter, in life. She's trying to reproduce the memory of that paradise from which she came.
I have one question. 261. She carries crucified God upon her breast.
Yes. We had this expression about how we crucify reality. We torture God. No. Yes. So she's carrying that suffering spirit on her breast, carrying him with her.
I tell you, when I read this line, when you read this line, suddenly coming when Mother tell, when she had 5 years only, his mother fighting with her, mother of the mother. And Mother replied, I not cried for your battle, but I cry for the suffering
of the whole world. Yes.
Il y a only 5. You imagine a little bit.
Yes.
Mother cry not for fighting. Alors, his mother replied, "You coming mad."
Yes, yes, yes. Her mother couldn't understand her. And so, yes, poor mother, she had to suffer a lot. And she had to learn when she was still a child to how to deal with that suffering and how to deal with her difficult mother. But then in later life she praises her. She said, she wanted to have the best children in the whole world. And it was because of that she scolded them so much and drove them so much. And later in her life, mother was grateful to her mother for that aspiration and all that effort. So let's go back to this line, 234. You read, Gangalakshmi. On every plane, this greatness.
On every plane, this greatness must create. On earth, in heaven, in hell, she is set. Of every fate, she takes her mighty part. The guardian of the fire that lights the sun. She triumphs in her glory and her might. Opposed, oppressed, she bears God's earth to be born. The spirit survives upon non-deep line. World force outlasts world disillusions, shock. Dumb, she still the world, inert in the palm.
Yes. So on every plane of existence, this greatness, the creative force of the Lord, she has to go on creating. Whether it's on earth or in heaven, in hell, she still has this urge. And she participates in every fate, whatever her creatures have to suffer, she also suffers. She is a guardian, one who guards the fire, the great creative fire that lights the suns, all the countless suns of the material universe and the suns of all the subtle planes. She triumphs in her glory and her might, her power. On the other hand, even when she's opposed and oppressed and obstructed, she carries within her God's urge to be born, to exist in forms. And because of that urge in her, the spirit survives, even on the basis of what seems to be total non-being, non-existence. This eternal yes is stronger than the eternal no of non-existence. World force outlasts world disillusions, shock. We may be disappointed and disillusioned with the world, but still that creative force is stronger. Even in circumstances where she can't express herself, where she's dumb, that doesn't take away her essential reality. She is still the Word, the creative Word. Even if she can't move, if she's imprisoned in matter. Even though she's inert and cannot move, she still is that great power. That's where we stopped.
Yeah, we stopped.
Suresh, you read.
She has fallen a slave of death and ignorance. To things deathless, she is driven to aspire, and moved to know even the unknowable. Even resentment, even the sleep, greatest the world.
Yes. So here in our material world, it's as if she's fallen from all her heavenly greatness. Here, she is a slave of death and ignorance, as we all are. But nevertheless, she has within her this urge. She's driven to aspire for greater things, to things that are not subject to death and ignorance, to deathless things. She wants to know everything, even the unknowable. So even when she's in matter, identified with matter, when she's nescient, when she has no knowledge, when she seems to be null, nothing, her sleep, her deep sleep in which she doesn't move, is creating a world. Her creative force can't be taken away from her. Alice?
When most unseen, most mightily she works, housed in the atom, buried in the clod, her quick creative passion cannot cease. Inconscience is her long, gigantic pause. Her cosmic swoon is a stupendous phase. Time born, she hides her immortality. In death, her bed, she waits the hour to rise.
So when we don't see her, then she's most active, most dynamic, most powerful. When most unseen, most mightily she works. And then the poet tells us what he means. He means when that great creative force is in the atom, or when it is buried in the soil, in the unconscious matter of the earth. Still, her quick creative passion cannot cease. And I think I've mentioned several times before that this word quick, it means alive, full of life. It's still there, this great force. So what we see as inconscience is her long, gigantic pause, as if she's taking a long rest. This unconsciousness, apparent unconsciousness of the universe, her cosmic swoon, as if she has fainted, lost consciousness. That's just a pause. It's a pause on a gigantic scale, a stupendous pause. When she is born into this universe of time and space and individuality and separation, when she's born in time, she hides her immortality. And when she seems to be dead, when there's no life, she's just lying there waiting until it's time to wake up and set to work. Slava, would you like to read? Quenched. Yes. These are all the obstacles that this great creative spirit has to face in a world of unconsciousness. So even when it seems that the light of consciousness, which has sent her out into this universe, when that is denied, when she no longer has that, it's taken away from her, and when the hope is taken away from her, the hope that she needed for her work, it's very difficult to work hard if you don't have any hope of a good outcome. No? Even when her brightest stars are quenched in night. The stars are very small and far away from us when we see them from our earth. No? But still, they are guiding lights for us. And some of them are brighter than others and guide us more strongly. But there are times when the night is so dark that we can't see any stars at all. We don't have those guiding lights. So even when it's like that, when her brightest stars are quenched, put out, like a fire put out in night, when all she has to nourish her, to feed her and help her to grow is hardship, difficulty, and calamity, disasters. When she suffers a lot of physical pain, when pain is the handmaid, aristocratic ladies have a handmaid to help them to get bathed and to get dressed and to take care of their surroundings, no? They're handmaids. And the handmaid may give massage also, maybe masseurs. And if she's sick or has any difficulty, the handmaid will nurse. But for this life principle, sometimes, who is that helper? It is pain. Still, her spirit, even though it's invisible, even though it's tortured, suffering terribly, still it goes on working very hard, even in darkness. It goes on creating, even though there's the acts of creation and giving birth to new creations is a very, very painful business. It's the Lord suffers with her. She's carrying the Supreme Lord, with her all the time, and he too is suffering with her. Alexander.
In chill, insentient depths where joy is none, immured, oppressed by the resisting void, where nothing moves and nothing can become, still she remembers, still invokes the skill the wonder worker gave her at the birth, imparts to drowsy formlessness a shape, reveals a world where nothing was before.
So there are deep places in existence where it's cold, there's no feeling, no, it's numb, there's no joy. Even when she's walled up in those depths and oppressed way down by the emptiness that's resisting all her efforts, in those depths where nothing moves and nothing can become, she still remembers, and she calls on the skill, the creative force that the wonder worker, the Lord, has given her when she was born, when he emanated her from his own being. So even in those chill depths, she gives to drowsy formlessness a shape, some kind of sleepy, formless state. She shapes it into something, into an existence. She reveals a world where there wasn't any world before. This is her power. Even in the state of non-existence, she can make things exist. Bhavana, you would read.
When realms confined to a own circle of death, to a law eternity of ignorance, echo in an inner inconscient mind, or imprisoned in immobilized
Quarrels.
Worlds of hope, by matter's blind compulsion, deaf and mute, she refuses motionless in the dust to speak. Then, for her rebel waking's punishment, given only hot mechanic circumstance as the engineering of her magic trap, she fashions godlike marvels out of mud. In the plasm, she sets her dumb immortal urge, help the live tissue to think, the closed sense to feel, flashes through the frail nerve's final messages, in a heart of flesh miraculously locked, to whose bodies give a soul, a will, a voice.
So wonderful, no? Even when she's confined, restricted and limited to realms that are apparently dead, lying flat, a prone circle of death, or dark eternity of ignorance. There are realms like that. When she only exists as a quiver, a tiny little movement in an inert, inconscient mass. When I read these words, I think of what Mother has said about very early line in Book 1, Canto 1, the state of the earth at the very beginning of the poem, no? And it says, in that unconscious darkness, something moved. And Mother has spoken so beautifully about that line, that this little movement, it's the beginning of aspiration, and from that everything can come. So it's something like that. She's just that quiver, that little movement in an inert, inconscient mass. Book 1, Canto 1, it's almost the first page. I think it's top of the second page. No, bottom, line 20. Then something in the inscrutable darkness stirred, a nameless movement, an unthought idea, insistent, dissatisfied, without an aim, something that wished but knew not how to be, teased the inconscient to wake ignorance. So it's as if that's also the action of the mother, that little movement. No? Yeah? Or when she's imprisoned in immobilized whirls of force, we feel it's natural for forces to move in circles. And if we look at the form that the force takes then, it's like a whirl. We have a whirl in our ear here, the form of the ear, or many shells are formed in a circular or spiral pattern. That's the meaning of this word whirl, which is of course similar to a whirl, which is the movement. The whirl is the form. No? So when her creative force is imprisoned in these whirls, they've become frozen, they can't move, these whirls of force. They are frozen like that because of matter, that blind compulsion of matter, deaf and mute. Even then, she refuses to just lie motionless in the dust to sleep. She wakes up. She makes things live. She brings life into the material universe. So that's a kind of rebellious movement on her part. She insists on waking up. And then he says it's as if because she's woken up, she gets punished. There's something that wants to punish her for waking up. So she's given only hard, mechanic circumstance. Means her will doesn't work there. She has to accept the circumstances as they come. Mechanic circumstances. That's all she's given for her work. The only tool that she's given is circumstance, chance. But she still manages to fashion God-like marvels out of mud, this muddy earth. And in the most primitive form of living matter, the plasm, she sets her dumb, immortal urge, her immortal urge for life and delight and creativity. So with that, she helps in our bodies, the live tissues, to become conscious, to think. The closed senses, the dumb senses, to feel. She flashes, she sends kind of electric impulses through the nerves, and those carry messages from one part of the body to another. And in this heart of flesh, this lump of flesh here that we have in our chests, in that heart of flesh, miraculously loves. She gives to brute bodies, these rough, clumsy animal bodies, she gives a soul, a will, a voice. Kamala.
Ever, she summons as by a sorcerer's wand, being and shapes and scenes innumerable, touch barriers of her bound through time and space. This world is a long journey through the night. The suns and planets, lamps to lamp and road. Our reason is the confidence of our thoughts. Our senses are vibrant witnesses. Their drawings are signs from things are true or false. She labors to replace by realized dreams the memory of a lost eternity.
So everybody who practices magic needs a wand. They have to have a rod or a stick that they can use to command their servants. So, as if she has a magician's wand, this goddess goes on summoning up, bringing into existence beings and shapes and innumerable scenes, so many we can't count them. And all those things that she summons and brings into existence, they are like wonderful, bright, flaring torches, showing her progress, the great procession of power through time and space. And of course, our world, our relatively dark material world, is her long journey through the night. And the mother has asked Huta to make a painting of the earth goddess toiling across the sands of time. You might remember it. No? That's her long journey through the night. And the suns and planets are like lamps along her road. Our reason, that's one of the highest things that she's created. No? And it says that she makes our reason the confidant of her thoughts. A confidant is your close friend, the one to whom you say things you won't say to anybody else. You share your secrets with your confidant. So she shares her secrets with our reason. Our senses are her vibrant witnesses. She makes them vibrate, and they have to show the world that, yes, we are alive. They're drawing her signs from things half true, half false. She labors to replace by realized dreams, the memory of her lost eternity. She wants to recreate that realm of eternal bliss.
But Shraddhavan, the dream is a memory
of the eternity that she has come from, her home, the realm of eternal bliss. The memory of her lost eternity. So the dreams come first, and then in the material world the dreams get realized. So that's what she's doing, trying to do. So the poet continues. We'll continue with him next week. On every plane this greatness must create. On earth, in heaven, in hell, she is the same. Of every fate she takes her mighty part. A guardian of the fire that lights the suns, she triumphs in her glory and her might. Opposed, oppressed, she bears God's urge to be born. The spirit survives upon non-being's ground. World force outlasts world disillusion's shock. Dumb, she is still the word. Inert, the power. Here fallen, a slave of death and ignorance, to things deathless she is driven to aspire, and moved to know even the unknowable. Even nescient, null, her sleep creates a world. When most unseen, most mightily she works. Housed in the atom, buried in the clod, her quick creative passion cannot cease. In conscience is her long gigantic pause. Her cosmic swoon is a stupendous phase. Time-born, she hides her immortality. In death, her bed, she waits the hour to rise. Even with the light denied that sent her forth, and the hope dead she needed for her task, even when her brightest stars are quenched in night, nourished by hardship and calamity, and with pain for her body's handmaid, masseuse, nurse, her tortured invisible spirit continues still to toil, though in darkness, to create, though with pangs. She carries crucified God upon her breast. In chill, insentient depths, where joy is none, immured, oppressed by the resisting void, where nothing moves and nothing can become. Still she remembers, still invokes the skill the wonder worker gave her at her birth, imparts to drowsy formlessness a shape, reveals a world where nothing was before. In realms confined to a prone circle of death, to a dark eternity of ignorance, a quiver in an inert, inconscient mass, or imprisoned in immobilized whirls of force by matter's blind compulsion, deaf and mute. She refuses motionless in the dust to sleep, Then for her rebel waking's punishment, given only hard mechanic circumstance as the enginery of her magic craft, she fashions godlike marvels out of mud. In the plasm she sets her dumb, immortal urge, helps the live tissue to think, the closed sense to feel, flashes through the frail nerves poignant messages. In a heart of flesh, miraculously loves. To brute bodies gives a soul, a will, a voice. Ever she summons, as by a sorcerer's wand, beings and shapes and scenes innumerable, torch-bearers of her pomps through time and space. This world is her long journey through the night. The suns and planets, lamps to light her road. Our reason is the confidant of her thoughts. Our senses are her vibrant witnesses. There, drawing her signs from things half true, half false, she labors to replace by realized dreams the memory of her lost eternity.